that recognize addiction as a public health issue by providing treatment rather than punishment. Suzula sits on the executive board of Minnesota Recovery.
The law every day, like most addicts do, by using illegal drugs. And I also broke the law by sending a package of drugs to a friend over state lines. I was federally indicted on a federal conspiracy drug charge, and the mandatory minimum sentence for my crime was 10 years.
Wow.
There is fortunately a statute known as the safety valve that lets first-time nonviolent drug offenders confess to the DEA to get out of the mandatory minimum. That brought my guidelines down to 70 to 87 months in prison. I was very fortunate to have a wise judge who's been a vocal opponent of the drug war for decades. He did what's called a downward departure and gave me a year in prison with 5 years of supervised release. During that year in prison, I received no chemical dependency treatment and no psychiatric or psychological support whatsoever. I got out. About a month or two later, I relapsed. My supervised release officer, my federal probation officer, purposely let me rack up 6 weeks of positive drug tests so that, in her words, she could send me back to prison for as long as possible. I appeared for my revocation hearing to see if they were going to send me back. Thankfully, a different federal judge was wise, let me go to treatment, and I've been in recovery since April 20th. The recommended punishment for relapsing, I didn't commit any new crimes other than relapsing, was 3 to 9 months in federal prison. He did an upward departure. He gave me 18 months in a federal maximum security facility to teach me a lesson. So they took me into custody. I went, I did my time, and I used that time to study for the law school admission test. I got out of prison. It was incredibly hard. It took me 4 months to find a job making minimum wage at a deli. And eventually I applied to law, so I did well in the test, applied to law school. They all rejected me and said, come back when you're off supervised release. I reapplied. I got into all the schools I applied to with merit scholarships. So I started law school in 2011. I did really well in law school. I graduated magna cum laude. I was on the dean's list. And I passed the bar exam. And then I hit the brick wall known as the Board of Law Examiners. Suffice it to say that 6 months later than everyone else that passed the bar got sworn in, I had to do urinalysis, I had to do psychological evaluations, I had to do chemical dependency assessments, I had been clean for 7.5 years. I had to do all that, and finally, begrudgingly, in May, they let me become a lawyer and I was sworn in. My journey, I met with ignorance, discrimination, prejudice, stigma. I had to fight twice as hard as everyone else to make sure that I was good enough. And I am here to say, I've been waiting since May 30th when that judge sentenced me to 18 months. I've been waiting to say this. You cannot punish me for having the disease of addiction. Because if anything is a crime, that is a crime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzula, for your message of inspiration and hope. And now, I'm honored to introduce to you Mackenzie Phillips. Mackenzie is a well-known actress, singer, I didn't know you sang, author, addiction counselor, and recovery advocate, and she is best friends of Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation. She is best known for her roles in the movie American Graffiti. What a great classic movie. The hit sitcom One Day at a Time, and the Disney Channel sci-fi show So Weird. She recently was the featured speaker at our annual celebration of life, Hazel Fest, held earlier this summer in Minnesota. Please join me in welcoming Mackenzie Phillips.
Thank you. I am so honored to be a part of all of you, and I'm so pleased to be standing in front of all of you. As I arrived here this morning and met so many of you, and we all took pictures together, I was reminded of the devastating consequences of the disease as I met many mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters who were here to honor their children who had died. And I just want to take a moment to tell you that I feel your pain, and I'm so honored that you come here in the memory of the people that we've lost, because our brothers and sisters are dying. Another one down, another one down, another one down. And yet last night as I'm in my hotel room, it hits me, as I've seen this commercial many times before, that they are actually actively marketing a drug to reverse the effects of opioid-induced constipation. Yes, we have a laugh about it, but it shows you where our consciousness has landed in this country. What we are up against with Big Pharma, what we are up against with the prescribing practices, and what we are up against with the disease that is centered in our minds. Okay? We unite to face addiction on a daily basis, but we do it in our homes. We do it in our recovery-oriented activities and groups. Now, we are uniting to face addiction on a broader platform. One of those beautiful moms gave me a bracelet today that says, "Not one more." Not one more! Oh, man. This is some powerful stuff, because we've got a big battle ahead of us, right? We have got a big battle ahead of us, because we are up against corporations and societal ideas of who we are and what we represent and what this disease is and how it manifests. And I want to be a part of putting a face on the addict and the alcoholic and the person in recovery and the person with a substance use disorder. You know, I mean, in my work as a counselor at Pasadena Recovery Center, I am in the front lines. I'm in the front lines on a daily basis. We all are in one way or another. Addiction and alcoholism touches the lives of so many people. I mean, I remember being in a room 20 years ago and saying, how many of you have been touched or affected in your personal lives and your families by the disease of alcoholism and addiction? And maybe a few people would raise their hands, but they're looking around. Is anybody watching me? I don't want anybody to know. We have to recover out loud, and yet at the same time, maintain the traditions that we are so attached to. You all know what I'm saying without me actually saying it, right? Okay? There's a way to do that. There's a way to do that so that we can be a part of not one more. A gentleman came up to take a picture with me a few moments ago, and he said, "Did you ever think about the irony of the fact that your show was called One Day at a Time?" I'm like, yeah, I've actually thought of that. It actually has occurred to me, and nothing against that lovely man who took the photo with me. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. In 1992, as I was on my way to Alina Lodge in Blairstown, New Jersey, I don't know. Okay, I'm a Lodge graduate, ladies and gentlemen, and nobody knows what that means unless you've actually met Geraldine Owen Delaney. You know, she had a license plate. Her initials were G.O.D., right? Her license plate said G.O.D. And when I met her, she said to me, she was 85 years old, okay? She was 45 years sober. She was friends with Bill and Lois, okay? And she said to me, "I don't care if you take your alcohol and crush it up and snort it up your nose. I don't care if you put it in a syringe and you shoot it into your arm, honey, your brain don't know the difference. And the consequences that you're going to face because of this disease are going to be the same, no matter how you get your alcohol into your body. She said, you sit down and you shut up. She said, honey, you're nothing but a GVD. I'm like, oh. Well, nobody, first of all, no one had ever spoken to me that way before. I was like, okay, this lady's really scary. Her eyebrows are drawn on and I'm terrified. And, well, now everybody's eyebrows are drawn on, right? What's with the eyebrows going on in this country? And she said, you sit down and you shut up. I said, what's a GVD? She said, well, honey, you're just a garden variety drunk. And I said, no, I shoot cocaine. And that's when she said, I don't care if you take your alcohol and crush it into it, you know. But anyway, as I was arriving at Olena Lodge, I'm wearing black suede sweatpants, and I was all dressed up to go. I was ready to put on a fashion show. And I walked into Gratitude House. I'm like, who names a building Gratitude? I knew nothing about recovery. Anyway, I looked up and there were like these plaques all over the wall. And one said, think, think, think. I'm like, but it was upside down. What is that? What is that? What is that? What's wrong with these people? They are messing with me. Anyway, the next one said, let go and let God. I'm like, that's cool. I like God, that's good. Let go and let God, I can do that. The next one, I'm like, aw, they knew I was coming. It said one day at a time. In my distorted perception, thought that they put up a plaque to welcome me to rehab. You know, a lot of years have gone by, a lot of water under the bridge, a rather public relapse, and the triumph of recovery has happened again in my life. But today we unite. Today, we know that we're worth it. Today, we try to change the perception of this disease. Today, we try and convince the world, or whatever, how much of the world we can reach, that this is a disease, and this is not a moral failing. There is no way, and I'm quoting the guy from Gloucester, Massachusetts, that sheriff. There is no way we are going to arrest ourselves out of the drug epidemic in this country. Our brothers and sisters in addiction in this disease are incarcerated for marijuana possession. Some of them are serving a life sentence. And that is not an exaggeration. So where's the balance of power in this? Where is our responsibility? We are beholden as people who have been given the gift of recovery to recover out loud and to try and make a difference for the people coming after us. They need to know where to go. They need to know that we can stand tall as people in recovery and live our truths and be a part of something beautiful and powerful and wonderful. You get us sober, you get us clean, or we get ourselves sober and clean. We are the hardest workers. We are the best friends. We are the best parents. We are the best. We function at such a high level of acuity when we are clean and sober. So let's share the love all across the world today. Thank you so much. I love you all.
Aren't we glad Mackenzie's no longer...
Wait! I forgot to thank the amazing Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation for sponsoring this incredible event and bringing us all together. We will be out there together, come rain or come shine. Thank you, HBF. I love you guys.
Amazing lineup, hi guys. Now I want to bring to the microphone Dr. Harry Haratunian. Dr. Harry is the physician director at the Betty Ford Center in California, where the sun is shining. He is a good friend to me, a good friend to all who meet him, and a nationally recognized expert in the addiction treatment field. And, by the way, for those who haven't experienced his force of nature personally, he is a wizard up on the hill. When Dr. Harry talks, people listen. Please say hello and join me in welcoming Dr. Harry.
Thanks, Betsy. Wow. Did you see Netanyahu do this? I'm saying a prayer for all of you. And for me, a prayer of gratitude. Amphetamine, so the energy is, I'm kind of a Tony Bennett guy, a little Frank Sinatra guy, you know. The nurses now call me the silverback gorilla of the medical department, so I've been around a little too long. You know, I was walking down the street going to Walmart trying to find a hat for this afternoon and gloves for this afternoon and rubber underpants or whatever the hell else we need this afternoon. And I walked by this big building that said teachers, AFL-CIO. And a thought went through my head, we're bigger than that. You know, we're bigger than that. The power of this kind of movement is logarithmic, and to be a part of it is just absolutely amazing. I want to tell you, my name is Harry. I'm an alcoholic. And I've been on, sober since I got off my knees this morning. By the grace of God, I've been able to do that because of faith in what happened yesterday and doing it again today, long enough to say, yeah, I guess I have long-term recovery. But really, getting off my knees this morning is a seminal event. I have a brother, Tom, and I have a brother, Dick. My father was Harry, and he had 7 brothers. Wow. Decorated war heroes, and were all killed by the disease of addiction. Wow. My brother Dick is dead from the disease of addiction. I went back to Boston this week to say goodbye to my brother Tom, who was just diagnosed from the disease of addiction. The next generation of addicts and alcoholics, our children, are all in recovery by the grace of God. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't come easy. I came into the Betty Ford Center and gave them a phony name on the first day. Gave a phony credit card, gave them my brother's date of birth. Medical records are still pissed at me because they had to change all the records 6 weeks later. But I was kind of a reluctant comer, I can tell you, because I was convinced that I was the only physician in the world that had the disease of addiction. I practiced for 35 years in Vermont as an old country doc and had the faith and trust and hope of families, and I felt like I let them all down because I caught my father's disease. And then one day, when my counselor said, Harry, you know, you used to be the youngest guy in your crowd. Look around the room, you're the oldest guy here. Ain't you done yet? And there was a miracle for me. Suddenly, a lot of the shame that I was carrying around, I was able to invite myself to trade in for guilt. And someone showed me a program. My particular one has 12 steps in it, and 2 of them were to do something about that guilt. And I learned that by making amends, not different than who I had been, there would be a miracle that would take place for me one day at a time. I've never been proud of my recovery. It's very dangerous for me, but I am extremely proud of yours. And I hope some of you can be proud of mine. I just came back from my beloved New England and was in the town of New Bedford, where in one 24-hour period there were 15 overdoses. I heard the governor from the state of Vermont direct his entire State of the State address toward the opioid crisis in my beloved state of Vermont. And I can tell you that as the only member of the medical profession on this podium this morning, I have to say something. To all my brothers and sisters in the medical profession, the doctors, if you're unfortunate enough to go to a medical school that didn't educate you, your license requires that you get the education. And if you're writing prescriptions, that weapon of mass destruction for money, you should be practicing in Sing Sing.
That's right.
Humility, gratitude for the gift. Sometimes we're lucky enough to get out of our own way. Just stop the blocks. That happened for me. We're showing people, we certainly have shown them a lot about the problem. Now we're showing them something about the solution. That's extraordinary. Mackenzie was just talking a little, I'm not sure who said this before, but I think it was Mackenzie. I went to Orange County to speak to one more audience. I do that a lot of community meetings. And I ran into a group that came up to the podium and asked me to go and speak with a woman. And there were 6 women that dragged me off to the back of the room. And they brought up a mother who was in tears. And all 6 women said that they had lost their child to opiates, to overdose. But the woman in tears had lost one child and had a second one who was addicted and afraid of losing 2. The name of the group that they had formed was called Solace, and 100 women strong were members, all of whom lost a child. And the reason they formed their group is because they went to grief groups with their grief to other parents who had lost their children for other reasons, accidents, cancer deaths, other diseases, and they were not accepted. Now that is stigma, and that has got to go away. So we're all here for the mothers of solace. We're all here for my uncles and my brothers. We're all here for your family members. We're all here to give other people hope that there is a way out. The original name of the big book, There Is a Way Out. I guess, Betsy, we're going to get a chance to have some people tell us, just bring them up here. Is that what we have people? We have mics here. Okay, we got people carrying the mics. Who has